I think you have too many animals over there.
How many animals do I have?
It's a lot of.
Well, there's a monkey, there's a pig, there's a cow, there's a chicken. Hi, welcome back to Brown Chicken, Brown Cow. We're sitting here with Toby Adams, an amazing lawyer working hard for poly families, gender, queer, and transitioning individuals, and working with the law and everything that goes into that. We wanted to ask you another question because we've been talking about some of the happier sides where families can, three people can adopt, have a child together. Not say adopt, but have a child together for the most part. But I know there's got to be challenges involved with some of these things.
Yeah. Sometimes there are. I've actually probably the worst situation, and I know this has happened with same-sex couples where people split up and one person goes off to a very unsupportive state and says, that non-biological parent is lesbian and that's horrible and they shouldn't be able to ever see our kids again. That has happened with poly families that have split up where there's two parents who have children, biological children together, and the courts are addressing parenting issues. And one of the parents uses the polyamory of the other parent against them in the courts, even though both of the parents are poly and were poly when they were all together with their various paramours in the house and everybody was a family raising kids, and then all of a sudden they split up and they're using poly as a weapon against the other parent and saying, you can't have the kids because you're actively poly.
Now, how does that normally turn out in general?
Well, I mean, the thing with the courts is that there's the law and there's the judges who interpret the law and make the rulings.
Okay.
And every judge is a human being, so you want to hope that you get a judge who understands and pays attention to the real issues. So one of the things that I've been able to do is bring in experts from the poly community, maybe even people you might have had or might have in the future on the show, social workers and such, who go to court as an expert witness. That's one of the things that can be done to help. But so far, the cases that I've dealt with have come out well, and both parents have been able to continue to have, full joint custody of their kids, which is really important. I mean, I don't think that using a parent's being poly against them. I mean, it's just like in any other divorce. When parents are using their kids as a weapon against each other, it's always a bad thing.
Right.
It's, I mean, it's, and the most important thing, I think, in a family restructuring itself is that the kids get through it with the least pain possible.
That's tough. That's just I hate when you hear those, news stories that some polyamorous families split up and then they're in the war for their kids, and it just seems like nobody really benefits in those scenarios. But I think we've talked a little bit about, parenting and some of the issues with polyamory there. What about things like funeral planning? Like, what sort of lawyer help might you give people who are planning that,
Sorry.
That's a terrible way to phrase
Lawyer
that.
help.
It's
Lawyer
like,
help,
hi,
please.
you're going to die someday. Yeah, I mean, that's important, and I think people don't realize how important it is to have a will and plan ahead, because if you don't have a will, if you don't have an estate plan, there's a default set of rules that the government uses. If you are with a partner who you don't have a legal relationship to and you haven't created a will, maybe your parents who you haven't spoken to in 20 years because you're queer or because you're poly or because they don't accept your family, could take control of your funeral plans. I mean, your body is not your own after you die, and your property is not your own. And if you write a will and you have an estate plan, you can say, these are the people in my life who are important to me. These are the people who are going to be the guardians of my children. These are the people I want to leave my property to. These are the people I want to have at my funeral, making my funeral plans. And if you don't have that estate plan, if you don't have a will, if you don't have guardianship papers set up, then you could have somebody in your family who has never supported you just not even allow your family members, your real, true poly family, to be there at your funeral.
All right, so let's talk about a little bit something different. Durable power of attorneys and living wills. We already just did that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're not changing
I'm
the
not-
topic. That's what we're talking about, Monkey. Were you paying
Yeah,
attention?
yeah.
No, I wasn't.
Well, I didn't really. I said it's important to have an
important.
estate plan, but what I didn't say is the specific things involved in that.
Yeah, that's
Durable
what I was
power of
thinking.
attorney.
Yeah.
Wills, trusts. Actually setting the beneficiaries on your accounts. A lot of things don't even go through probate court, which is the court that handles that will handle your property being left. A lot of things that have a beneficiary on them, like your life insurance and your retirement plans, they actually have a beneficiary. You can write in whoever you want to be the beneficiary.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things that a lot of people don't think about because you don't want to think about death. You don't want to think about, what if I'm not here to take care of my kids, or what if I'm not here to protect my spouse from my parents, or that kind of situation.
All right, so let me just back up, because we've talked about death, sickles and guys in black capes. But what about living wills?
So it's bad. You said sickles, and I was thinking of popsicles.
Have any of those here?
We can make a sickle out of popsicles. It might not be very cutty, but
No.
the professor.
Cutting edge. This is cutting edge.
Yeah, the professor might be able to help with that. You never know.
I think we have a sickle somewhere around here.
I believe.
Don't bring it up.
I do.
Please don't bring it up.
So living wills are for for like medical care, correct?
Well, so there's a living will, which is one of the terms that people use for a durable power of attorney for healthcare.
Right.
The proper term is durable power of attorney for healthcare. Another thing that people sometimes think that they're talking about a living will is actually a revocable trust, which is a trust account where you put your property in this. It's like a bucket. It's like a legal bucket that exists almost as its own legal person. You know how they say now that companies are people in it.
Corporations.
So a trust is sort of like legally a person that owns this property, and you can say put your house in your trust, and when you die, your trust doesn't die, and so your property doesn't go through probate, and so the taxes you don't lose a lot of your property to estate taxes, and whoever you've set as the beneficiaries of that trust gets that property, gets to continue owning that, and it's called a revocable trust because you can put property in, but until you die, you can revoke that and you can change that and take property out and put other property in. But once you die, it's locked. And so, for instance, a family member who thinks that they should have the right to have your property can't come along and say, oh, that's mine. It belongs to whoever you've set as the trust. So people have used the term living will to mean durable power of attorney for healthcare, and they've used it to mean a revocable trust. So it's better to use the proper terms for that so you don't get confused about what you're talking about.
So I think we have a couple more questions for you, because I want to follow up on something you said earlier. You talked about kind of being only one of the few lawyers who is actually in this field. Are there any good resources out there for people who are looking for lawyers that might be able to assist them, whether it's a transgendered individual who's working on some gender identity issues that need legal help, or polyamorous people who are dealing with stuff? Like, are there websites or places they can go that they'd be like, all these lawyers will help you in these areas?
There's a poly-friendly professionals group that I'm on, where some people have found me that way as far as poly resources. There's actually I can't remember the name of it right now, but you could probably Google and find something that's a kink-friendly professional site that I'm also on. There is
That site is called the Kink Aware Professionals.
kink-aware professionals. Excellent. And you can find tax attorneys, you can find lawyers, you can find social workers and such. So you can get referrals through those. There is a family law attorney in New York, so I'm sure that your Vodcast goes out beyond California, and I am licensed to practice in California. There's actually a great family law firm in New York, Diana Adams law firm, same last name, no relation, that handles specifically alternative family law. They do the same sort of work that I do. And as far as transgender and genderqueer people, they could contact my organization, the Intersex and Genderqueer Recognition Project.
And you'll help them out.
Yeah, I will help them out. We can help them out. If they're genderqueer or transgender people, I would recommend contacting the Transgender Law Center. They also do legal referrals.
Okay.
And
you know what? We're going to talk about the Transgender Law Center in a second.
In just
anyway.
a moment, yeah.
Really?
So
that's great.
We'll cover that for you.
That's great. Yeah.
Got your back. So one last question, because we are in the barnyard here at the Brown Chicken Brown Cow show.
And this cow feels much better now.
He does look much happier.
Yes.
So what type of barnyard animal are you and why?
Oh, well, that's pretty easy for me to answer. I'm a cat. I've always been a cat. And when my daughter, Kaylin, worked at a farm with helping out with rescued animals, they had a whole bunch of barnyard cats. And they hung out in the barn and kept the barn free of vermin. So they protected the horses from having, a little mice scurrying under their feet, scaring them. So
That's
not that I would ever eat rodents, but
Toby, we're excited to have you back. We've already invited you back to come back in October when we discuss gender identities and gender transitions and everything that you're doing in that arena. So you've been a delight and wonderful, and thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have a couple more organizations we want to talk about, though, right?
Yeah, I definitely have to tell you about the Transgender Law Center.
Which you just mentioned.
I know, because we've already gone over it, so I'm going to give you a little brief overview here. So they change law, policy, and attitudes so that all people can live safely, authentically, and free from discrimination, because I can say words today, regardless of their gender identity or expression. They're the largest national trans-led organization that advocates self-determination for all people. And they do a lot of things, and you should check them out on their website. Just Google transgenderlawcenter.org, and it should get you there.
They should, yeah. I have one more I want to talk about as well. That's why I've got my notes here. Human Rights Campaign that www.hrc.org if you want to check them out that way. The Human Rights Campaign and the Human Rights Campaign Foundation together serve as America's largest civil rights organization working to achieve LGBTQ equality by inspiring and engaging individuals and communities. And the HRC strives to end discrimination against all LGBTQ people and realize a world that achieves fundamental fairness and equality for all. They do some really great work. Definitely go out to the hrc.org website and check them out. What's coming up next?
I think we are going to talk to Holly, who's a social worker.
We're not talking to Holly.
Somebody is going to, and it will be here in this room.
In this room?
I think.
I think it's Heather Beth.
Yes.
And it might be Jessa Lee.
Yes. And I also have to point out,
What?
I feel like our barnyard is going to be filled with cats.
There's going to be a lot of cats in our barnyard.
Many jokes to be made about that.
So we're going to go to our sponsor, and when we come back, we will talk to Holly about social work and the wonderful work she does.